Hello everybody, welcome back to another SUPboarder video. This video we're going to be talking about the Astron foil board range, the new boards for 2023. So many of you are getting into SUP surf foiling or wing foiling, and these boards could be just the boards you could be looking at. Have you subscribed to the SUPboarder YouTube channel yet? It's really easy. Click the subscription and you won't miss any of our future videos. There's loads of great content going on there every week. So the way I'm going to lay this video out is I'm going to talk about each of the boards, giving you the design characteristics of the boards, who those boards we think will best suit, and then I'll finish off the video giving you any cons or observations or things you need to be aware of before you buy into any of the Astron foil board range. And hopefully by the end of that, you'll have a good idea of which one of these boards is right for you, if any of these boards are right for you. But before we jump into these boards, a quick rundown about Aztron. If you're unaware who Aztron are, they're a very big player in the water sports industry at the moment. Started off very much with inflatable paddle boards, then composite paddle boards, not far behind that, and then really jumped into the foiling and the wing game. And this is their biggest range of boards. We haven't got all of the boards in the sizes here. We're still missing 2 of the inflatable boards, but we have already done reviews on those in the past. But the boards we're going to be speaking about today, and the ones that we've been using over the last month, we have the new Falcon Carbon 6.3. This board replaces the 6.6 that came out in 2021. Then we have the Falcon Carbon X 510. This board was in last year's range. And then we have a new Falcon Carbon X in a 5-foot size. Looking at the inflatable board sizes, 2 of the boards that we haven't been using over the last few months, but we have used in the past reviews, are the Falcon Air 7.6 and the Falcon Air X 510. But we have been using this new Falcon Air 5.4, and we're going to be speaking about that one in this video. If you're new to the disciplines of SUP foiling and wing foiling, the general rule is the bigger the board, the easier it's going to be to stand on, like loads of board sports. But when you're up and riding, it's not going to be as maneuverable. It's going to have more nose or swing weight. That's going to affect how that board trims and flies around when you're on the foil. But if you drop down off the foil and standing on the water, you're obviously going to find it a lot less stable if you're on a smaller board. So most of you all want to be on the small boards when you're up and riding, and it definitely looks the coolest when you're walking down the beach. But bear in mind, if you want to progress quickly into the sport, getting the right size board is really crucial, and that's really what we're going to nail in this video. So first off, let's look at the new composite board, the 6.3. So this one replaced the older 6.6. That was much thinner. That was 25.5 inches wide. This one is 30 inches wide. Thickness is about the same, 4.3 inches thick, and the volume is 140 litres. The retail price for this one, £899 or $999. The weight of this board is pretty crucial because it's a very lightweight board at 7.96 kilos. And we would say if you're a rider that's got a good amount of experience, this board will take you up to about 100 kilograms in weight. Now that isn't a higher weight rating as some of the other boards on the market at the similar volume. Now the reason that is because the rails on this board are a little bit thinner throughout the whole of the board. There's a little bit more nose rocker and it's more thinned down, more refined. Now that does give the board a nicer feel when you're flying and when you're touching down. It's not so boxy in a lot of the rail like many other boards are that are on the market. With more boxy rail, you're going to have a bigger volume rail that's basically not going to sink in the water so much more, will give you a bit more stability, which is why we're saying a maximum rider, if you're getting into the sport as a new person, first time on the board, probably 90 kilograms, 85 kilograms, this is going to be really, really comfortable. If you've got a little bit more experience, 95 kilograms, and a bit more, 100 kilograms. And if you've got loads of experience, you could use this board right up to 120 kg, of course, but obviously it's going to be starting to sink down in the water. If you're wing foiling, a lot of people are riding smaller boards in general. They don't mind them sinking under the water. When you're SUP surf foiling, because this board would do both of those disciplines very well, you're definitely going to want to have a bit more float. Looking at the bottom shape of the board, you've got Astron's almost signature bottom shape that they've had on their smaller 510 previous years. two big double concaves with a V running down the center. And that's really as you're getting up onto the foil, or if you're touching down off the foil, the water's then going to basically focus itself towards the back of the board, and it's going to give you a little bit of a smoother touchdown having a double concave up at the nose there, opposed to having a flat nose or a single concave. It's going to make that touchdown a little bit smoother. The rails up here are still beveled like lots of other foil boards on the market. Again, when you're touching down, that's going to make that a little bit more forgiving. And also if you're touching down at a slight angle, maybe you're going around your jibe or you're carving in your wave in the SUP surf, a bevel rail is not going to catch as much as a boxier rail. So that's the advantage of having a bevel rail opposed to having a thicker rail that will give you a bit more stability and volume. This one's finished off with a single carry handle in the bottom, no carry handle in the top, and you've got the standard double US box, foil box placement on the bottom here. If I hold it up and you can see the rocker line shape of the board, you can see there's a little bit of nose rocker there and a little bit of tail rocker there at the back of the board. The more rocker you're going to have on the board, the easier it's going to be to touch down because your nose isn't going to bury, and when you're getting up on the foil, if you've got a little bit of tail kick there, you can lean back to initiate that foil. But the negative to that is it's going to be a little bit slower when it's just going on, not on the foil, just trying to gather up speed because your board's going to have more curve. A flatter board is going to be way faster. Our impressions of the 6.3 when using it were very positive. It's a nice board, it's very easy to use, it's nice and light, good amount of area at the back there, you've got a nice tail pad for using it when you're using it without foot straps. And the construction they put in this board, which is the carbon bamboo layup, does seem fairly hard wearing. Obviously we've only used this for a month and we haven't given it a real beating. Time will tell with that, but on first impressions it looks pretty good. Moving down in size now, we're going to look at the 510. This one was in last year's range. 5'10", 30 inches wide, still 4.3 inches thick, 115 litres. And this board actually does weigh a little bit more at 8.44 kilograms. So it's still a competitively lightweight board, still with a good carbon bamboo construction, but the newer one is much, much lighter. It is very similar to the 6.3. It's got the same sort of characteristics. You can see the outline shape is still very much the same. It's still quite wide, a lot of width up at the nose there, width at the tail, still going to make it relatively stable. But just like the other board, it has got quite pulled in rails, which are going to help on the touchdown, but don't have as much volume as other boards. Still got that massive double concave, just like the 6.3, filtering back towards the tail. Great on the touchdowns, going to make it just a little bit smoother on those touchdowns. This one, you've got a carry handle in the top and the bottom of the board. I'm a personal fan of having handles in the top and the bottom. There are so many times where I'm walking down the beach, whether it's with a wing or SUP surf foiling, and I'll go to grab the handle or whichever side it is and it's not there. So it's nice to have that handle. I would probably say I'd rather have one in the top than the bottom, but I know that's a real personal preference. Rider weights for wing foiling, if you're going to be experienced a little bit more, you're going to be able to ride it up to 95 kilograms. The real sweet spot for a first time rider, up to about 70 kilograms, you're going to be able to jump on this, 75 kilograms quite easily. SUP surfing, obviously it's going to be a little bit more technical to ride, it's a little bit shorter, probably up to about, again, 75, 80 kilograms at the most, I would say, if you want to be getting into SUP surf foiling with this board. But bear in mind, the shorter the board you go, the more effort you're going to require to paddle yourself onto that wave. Okay, now let's get the little one that was behind me. This is the new 5 foot, the smallest board in the range. Full specifications for this one, 26 inches wide and 4.3 inches thick. And the volume is 75 or 85 litres. Actually not quite sure, we might try and do some tests on this, but because it says 85 on the board and it says 75 in the catalogue and online, it feels at about 80, I would say, when we're riding it. It's definitely a lot more technical, obviously, than these bigger based boards. If you're an experienced wing foiler, you're going to be able to jump on this board at about 85 kilograms. If you're an experienced SUP surfer, you're going to be able to jump on this board at about 75 kilograms. The word I'm emphasizing there is experienced. It is a lot harder to use than these longer, wider, more voluminous boards. They're not really pushing it as a SUP surf foil board, but we do think it could perform pretty well. It's got the same basic outline shape as the other two, so you still get quite a lot of width up at the nose and at the tail. And the bottom shape is a lot simpler than the other two boards. You have a very, very, very subtle double concave. The rails are beveled off just like the other ones, probably not as dramatically as the other ones. Obviously, when you have a shorter, more compact board, if you're trying to put lots of bottom shape on that board, you're trying to transition from one shape to the other very quickly. So a lot of the smaller base boards, definitely smaller than mid 5 foots, they generally have a little less shape than the bigger boards. We have more length to play with, so you can transfer from one shape to the other much more subtly. Still has the central carry handle at the bottom and the double US box, which is for your foil. This board is very light, 5.6 kilograms. It's a very light board. It's got a fairly healthy amount of rocker there from the nose to the tail, a bit more of a banana than the other boards, but remember again, it's got to get that in the smaller compact length, because if this board was much flatter, it would tend to nosedive a lot more on touchdown. But when we're riding this board is a very fun, exciting board to use. But also when getting up onto the foil, it does require more effort and more skill than the bigger boards for sure. But it isn't actually as hard as I initially thought when I first saw the rocker line of this board. As I said before, any rocker you have in a board, it's going to slow the board down when you're not on the foil. But maybe because of the weight, and we can ride it with foot straps, we can still get up on the foil relatively quickly with this new 5 foot. Right, now let's move on to the inflatable board range. Let's speak about the ones that I haven't got here at the moment. So you get the Falcon Air 7.6, that's 31 inches wide, 4.75 inches thick, 175 litres. We used that one in the past and we recommended a rider weight up to about 115 kilos. The smaller board, which we've also used in the past, was the Falcon Air X510 by 29 and 4.75 inches thick. That brings the volume at 135 litres. Max rider weight for that one is going to be a little bit less at about 110 kilos. The big difference between those two boards is the 7.6 is the one with the 3 fixed fins at the back there. So you could use that actually traditional SUP surfing. And the new board here, the Falcon Air X 5 foot 4, 27 inches wide, 4.75 inches thick. It's got a volume of 105 litres. And this board, when we weighed it, weighed 6.26 kilograms. This one's got less volume. It's definitely going to have a less max rider weight. We're going to recommend up to about 90 kilograms if you're more of an experienced wing foiler. The constructions for all of their inflatable foil boards are exactly the same. Multiple layers of PVC, double chamber boards, all pumped up to a maximum of 15 psi. The stiffness of these boards really isn't a problem at all. We've said it in the past reviews. They're very compact and small, and with the double chamber, it does give them a very stiff feel. This board has got some new additions to it though. At the back, you've got a tail release runner, which increases the speed and lets the board come up onto the foil much quicker. It seems to have less drag at the back there. The foil box itself is the same foil box they had last year. It goes from the bottom to the top of the board, so it has that very much rigid feel. It's not a massive foil box like some other brands have got, where they've got much bigger plastic or carbon or aluminium plates that you're standing on. This one is much smaller. It's a fairly nice reference point actually to where you are standing, be able to feel this lump under the EVA deck pad. This one's finished off with a central carry handle, which leashing point at the back, and it has actually got a towing eye under the front of the board as well. Looking at who would best suit the inflatable boards, well, starting off with the small board, it's obviously going to be harder to ride when you're not on the foil. You could be a beginner, but you have to be a lighter weight beginner, probably 60 kilos and down, I would say. You could get on that as a first time. Going for the longer board, the 510, is going to give you much more flexibility of basic conditions you use it in, amount of chop that you're going out in, and you're obviously going to be able to take that as a heavy rider up to about 75, 80 kilograms quite comfortably. If you're bigger than that, again, you're going to want to go for the longer 7.6. It's just going to give you way more float. But remember, there is a big difference between using a composite board to an inflatable board, even if they're the same size. Definitely the easiest board to learn to wing foil or SUP surf foil on will be the 6.3 over the equivalent inflatable board, the 7.6. So the composite boards are much easier to get up onto the foil. They tend to drag a lot less when you're getting up onto the foil, and then when you touch down, you're not going to have such a shock. Let's say it's going to be much more subtle as you touch down with any of the composite boards, because there is more shape and more design going into these composite boards. And the inflatables, you are really limited to rocker line and width and outline shape, and that's pretty much it when it comes to inflatables. Now I'm going to move on to some cons, negatives, things you need to think about or be aware of before you're buying into potentially one of these boards. Looking at the 6.3, I love this board, super lightweight, great shape, nicely finished board. It's a shame that the front foot straps aren't like the other 510 or the smaller 5 foot. You can't have them in the traditional Y-shaped setup that a lot of you wing foilers are riding. You can have front foot straps and you can offset them, but you're going to be offsetting them right in the middle of the board. It's not a massive negative, but it is a shame that they haven't finished off like the other boards. If you're into SUP surf foiling, it really isn't an issue. You can ride it quite happily, and it has got a back strap as well. Haven't actually got any negatives at all of the 510 or the smaller 5 foot. That is definitely one of the golden nugget boards here, that 5 foot. I am going to move some negatives, unfortunately, onto the new 5.4 inflatable. The handle, as I said, I love it in the middle at the center, but you are sort of tempted to use it as a foot strap sometimes, which would not be a good idea. So I do think maybe moving the handle off to the sides like they have done with the older 510, there's handles on the side of that board. It's going to remove the limitation of you maybe using that as a foot strap. You can stand on it and squash it down. It's just an observation. When you're riding it, some of you might be tempted to do that, and that would not be a good idea. The other negative to this board is it does sit a little bit nose down when you're riding it. You can probably see it on all the video clips. The foil box, there is very little movement. It needs to go further back, so then you can lean the board and get your weight up. Maybe if you're a heavier weighted rider with a certain foil from Astron, you could get it to sit a little bit flatter, but we were using it with the 1650 from Astron, and we are 70 to 75 kilograms. We couldn't really get it to sit very flat at all, so that's definitely another observation. And the last one is there is a towing eye at the front of the board underneath. I don't really think it's needed. So there's a few negatives, but really let's give you a summary of the products and if Astron have moved in a good direction with their foil boards, and generally they have. They have brought out a really nice board with the 6.3. The 510 and the 5 foot are down there for those improving SUP surfers and wing foilers. And even if you're a bit of a kit snob when it comes to foiling gear and you don't like looking at cheaper price point boards, yes, you know who you are. This board would surprise you, so it might even be worth having a go, getting a demo on one of those. The iSUPs are a very competitive price, and for what you get for the money, you do get a good buy, and they are going to get you on the water as a first timer or somebody who needs a compact transportable board that will fit in the back of the car, just in case you want to go foiling at any point, because that is an advantage of these boards over other boards on the market, inflatables, is they don't fold up, they roll up, and they are actually very small when they are rolled up, which is a really big plus, and the reason why you would actually have an inflatable foil board in the first place. I hope you found this video interesting, informative. Have you used these boards? Do you own these boards? Please let us know. Get them in the comments below. Definitely check out our website, SUPboardermag.com, and if you're mad keen into SUP, surf, foil, wing disciplines, you want to learn more, definitely check out SUPboarder Pro, which is our subscription service, which also really supports us to make more content for you out there as well. Thank you very much, and we'll see you on another video real soon.